Welcome back to another episode of the Gridiron Guys YouTube channel, and today we are going to be getting into why streaming defenses is the way to go in fantasy football. And we're just going to start that by going over why you shouldn't be drafting a defense like the Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, Steelers, these top defenses. You're going to have to hold on to them for the entire year. And the issue with drafting a top defense is none of them are matchup proof. So right now I have the 2020 defensive rankings pulled up, and the Baltimore Ravens are sitting at third. And the Baltimore Ravens' first three games of the 2020 season are against Cleveland, Houston, Kansas City. Those are three offenses that are potentially really, really good. Kansas City and Baltimore is going to be an absolute shootout. Houston can put up points. And Cleveland, who knows? They have so much firepower that could be another shootout game. You're spending probably a 10th, 11th round pick when you could be drafting a nice running back or wide receiver on a top defense like Baltimore, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, all those defenses, but they're not matchup proof. Say they play the Chiefs, they're going to probably be a 35-30 game. Baltimore's defense may have 2, 3, potentially negative points. And yes, are they going to feast on lowly teams like the Redskins? They have the Bengals later in the season as well. They are, but you should be streaming defenses because you can have the best matchup from week to week. So you may ask, well, who do I pick for my defense in fantasy football in the draft? Well, I've handpicked four defenses after looking at each team's schedule that you can snag with your last round pick, and they have really, really nice beginning of the year schedules. So the first team I have that I think is the best defense to draft is the Philadelphia Eagles. They have a great matchup week one against the Washington Redskins. Should feast on Dwayne Haskins. Week two they have a Rams game. I play the Rams, and that might be a tougher matchup. Might be not that great of a defensive matchup. But then week three they have the Cincinnati Bengals and rookie Joe Burrow, and who knows what we're getting from that offense. I mean, you can start the Eagles defense for the first 3 weeks of the season. They get some tougher matchups. You can drop them, and then you can go to the waiver wire. That's what I suggest with all these defenses. I have three more. We have the Chargers next. They're currently ranked at defense 14. You can draft them in the last round. They open up the season against Cincinnati. Not a great offense. We don't know what we're getting. They play the Chiefs. It'll be a tough divisional game. But then they have a really lowly Panthers offense after the Chiefs. And those are two really good early season matchups for another Charger defense that won't be getting drafted. You're not going to have to spend any draft capital to acquire them. It's a last round pick. My third defense that I think you should be streaming this year is the Indianapolis Colts. And now the Colts made some great additions, getting DeForest Buckner. They have a really solid defense. Honestly, might be better than the other defenses on this list. But their schedule is so easy in the beginning of the year. They open up against Jacksonville, go to Minnesota, which is a tough matchup. Then they play the Jets and the Bears. The Colts are a start 4 weeks in a row. The Vikings one's tough, but you're getting 3+ matchups for defense drafted, and then you drop them to the waiver wire. And then the whole point of streaming is you want to be finding those matchups throughout the year. So you might want to pick up a defense when they're playing the Bears like a week before. So when you drop them, you have two nice matchups again following. It does require to have basically an empty bench spot to be playing with your second defense. But if you're streaming defenses and getting offensive matchups like the Redskins, Jets, Bears, Panthers, those are 10 to 20 point defensive weeks, which could easily win your matchup, especially on a lower scoring basis. Like if you're in a standard league, defense is huge. You're going to have games that are 70 to 80 points usually. Defense accounts for 15 to 20% of that. And it's huge. You have to be able to pick good defensive matchups every week. You can't just play a top defense Baltimore against Kansas City. You're getting 1 point, maybe negative points. But moving on, my fourth potential streaming defense is the Browns. They do open up against Baltimore, which is a terrible matchup. But then they follow with the Bengals and the Redskins, and you're getting two terrific matchups for them following. And the common theme with these four defenses, the Eagles, Chargers, Colts, and Browns, that I have is they have more plus matchups in the first 3 or 4 weeks than negative matchups. Most teams are going to have one bad matchup, and if you really want to, you can add a second defense to substitute for like a Ravens or a Chiefs game. But these 4 defenses are going to be very, very good plays early on in the season, and you're going to be able to draft them in the later rounds. And now, once those first 3 or 4 weeks finish, that's when you go to the waiver wire. And depending on how well everything shakes out, who knows? Maybe they're a full season defense. But say the Chargers play the Bengals, the Chiefs, and the Panthers, and they have a tough week. They have a tough matchup week 4, which they do. You can either drop the Chargers defense the week before when they play the Panthers, or no, not drop the Chargers defense. You can add a second defense the week they're playing the Panthers, week 3, that has a nice, easy matchup for week 4, 5, and 6. And you're going to continue to do that throughout the season. You're going to pick your defense for the first 3 or 4 weeks, add one on the waiver wire, the last good matchup, and then you continue to complete that process throughout the year. And yes, you will have to use an extra roster spot, but let's be real. You're keeping your backup potential. You're taking like your 5th running back or your 6th wide receiver on your bench. That spot is way better utilized, capitalizing on defensive matchups throughout the entire season. And I can't emphasize this enough. If you are in a lower scoring league or a bigger league, 12, 14, 16 people, that just makes defenses more important. For people in much higher scoring leagues, it's not as important. If you're in a PPR league, defense won't account for as many points compared to the rest of your team. But standard, half PPR, 8, 10, 12 people, you need to be streaming defenses consistently because they're unpredictable, but you can predict bad offenses. I'm pretty sure Washington last year had 3 consecutive weeks where they scored a total of like 6, maybe 12 points. That's 15 points a game for like a fantasy perspective every single week. And they're not hard to find. It takes about 10, 15 minutes on the waiver wire day. You figure out who is an easy next few week matchup and you pick them pick them up while your defense is playing a lowly matchup. For the Browns playing the Skins week 3, you'd pick up, I don't know, a team that has a nice week 4, 5, and 6 matchup. And you drop the Browns the following week, and you're only losing a bench spot every 3rd or 4th week if you do it correctly. Streaming defenses is the way to go in fantasy this year. I don't see a defense that's going to be able to consistently put up points against any team in the NFL. I look at the top defensive rankings right now. I see San Fran, Pittsburgh, then Baltimore. I mean, San Fran is a very tough division, playing great offenses. Arizona, Seattle, and the Rams all twice. That's 6 games against pretty elite offenses. Pittsburgh's got to play Baltimore and Cleveland, and even Cincinnati, who could be sneaky good 6 times. And Baltimore, on the other hand, with that first place schedule, they're going to have a ton of tough games on there. And they're going to have to play a ton of elite offenses, including Kansas City, including Cincinnati. Cleveland could be really good. I just don't think any of them are as dominant to play every week. There's no 2016, 2015, whatever Legion of Boom. No, these defenses aren't top-notch lockdown. You just can't start them every week. And that's why I think it's worth streaming, because a Pittsburgh-Baltimore matchup, I'm not going to want to play Baltimore's defense or Pittsburgh's defense because it might be a really high-scoring game. You got to stream defenses. It takes effort. You got to look into the schedules, but it's all worth it in the end. And I strongly advise selecting one of the Eagles, Chargers, Colts, or Browns to start off your season, because those teams all have 2 or 3 plus matchups in the first 3 to 4 weeks and will really help you get out to a hot start in your next fantasy season. Make sure to like and subscribe on this video and drop a comment down below to what defense you think is being severely undervalued, and if you have any other suggestions for sleeper defenses, because all the defenses I suggested are defenses that should maybe be drafted or likely not being drafted. So you're spending one of your last round picks on this, and you're getting great value later in the drafts. And as always, make sure to check out our socials, Gridiron_guys_YouTube on Instagram, and our podcast on Spotify, Gridiron Guys, for the same content you have on YouTube.